The real revolution in cinema is still in the message and the way you make the films. Of course, a lot of times maybe with a limited budget, but the limitation actually challenges you further and pushes you. And that's where you're tested, no? Yung pagiging independent, yung pagiging resourceful, and you're very flexible, no? So you find ways to achieve yung vision mo. Compromise is not necessarily negative. Compromise is your ability to, still achieve your vision with given the parameters and the resources you have. No?
So Raymond, ano yung favorite mong film sa post-pandemic era?
Post-pandemic. Admittedly, nung nangyari ang pandemic, I started watching a lot of old films pa rin eh. So, parang it's difficult to say what my favorite was post-pandemic because I was watching a lot of classic films. I spent a lot of time sa YouTube looking for classic movies.
What did you discover na you felt like sa canon mo ng post-pandemic films na napanood mo? Ano yung siguro top one mo doon?
I have to admit nga na during pandemic, I kind of got tired. I don't know, maybe jaded, watching too many art house films and of course watching Netflix, no? Kaya when I got to YouTube and looked for classic films, I started watching mga early films ni Alfred Hitchcock. Syempre marami na siyang classics, but his real start was when he was a British filmmaker, and in fact he remade some of his early films, no? A Man Who Knew Too Much, mga ganon eh. So hinanap ko yung mga original version, and so I got so hooked on ganon Alfred Hitchcock, and then naghanap ako ng mga film no. So yun ang mga pinapanood ko.
Do you still watch new films?
Yeah, I watch films naman as much as I can. I still believe in watching on the big screen. In fact, yan ang pinipreach ko sa students ko. I always tell them as much as we can, we should try and watch a movie for the first time if it's available on the big screen, ano? And I always challenge them, parang ano ba yung big difference? I mean, apart from quality, di ba? Kasi the discussion is, well, if you can afford, let's say, a home theater or a really fancy large screen LED monitor, it's the immersion is almost the same. You can afford, Dolby Surround and all that. Parang ganun na rin yung appreciation at home, di ba? So what else is different? And I always tell them, it's control. That's the point. You don't have control over the film when you go to a theater. So that means you invest yourself in the movie. Mas may commitment ka to see it. And then you experience it talaga from beginning to end. I think yun yung pinaka-important dun eh. So, I know yung discussion ngayon, ang hirap na manood. There are fewer people now really going to cinemas. It's expensive, mga ganon, ano? And then, syempre, kino-compare nila sa streaming, na you can pay a monthly subscription with one price of a ticket pag theatrical. So, ang hirap talaga pag-usapan yun eh. Kasi syempre, yung viewers, nagiging ganon na yung mindset. So, but yun yung lagi kong nilalaban eh. Yun yung main difference. Because sa akin, yun yung magic of cinema. The magic of cinema is it's like reality. It's life. You cannot pause it. You cannot rewind it. You cannot stop it. And because of that, the experience of watching a movie in the theater has that parang commitment from you eh. No, na minsan you don't really, take that for granted when you're at home watching a movie. I mean, I know a lot of people still watch movies beginning to end, mag Netflix ka man or Amazon and so on. But in the back of your mind, you can pause it. I think that affects your attitude towards the film
It does.
and the experience. No, that you can pause it, you can go to the comfort room for a while and then come back, or you can pause it and continue the movie the next day. In fact, the streaming platforms kind of encourage that. No, so yun yung difference. So I really believe in theatrical pa rin. But ako mismo, I'm guilty. I've missed a lot of good films that came out on the big screen. But as much as I can, I make that effort.
I feel like going to the cinema, and I had this epiphany recently, it's one of the most accessible cultural activities you can have in the Philippines. Kasi people love to complain na, oh, our cultural institutions aren't investing enough and this and that. But going to the cinema sa mall, feel like not all, but it's one of the highest quality cultural experiences that you can experience in the Philippines. Do you agree with that?
That's true. I mean, what's interesting, a lot of, the foreign cultural institutions, they hold festivals, so they're able to provide us films that we otherwise won't easily find, no? Kaya lang today nga, a lot of things are so accessible and easy to find online. So I remember the days when I was starting to learn filmmaking pa lang in the 80s. Talagang it's an effort. You have to go to the event itself, no? When the German Cultural Center or Alliance Francaise, when they announce a screening, that's really a very, very rare opportunity to see those films, and during that time, okay, there was already home video, but not all films were that readily available, or they were expensive to find, no? So talagang yun nga, you invest, you really make that effort to go out and watch the movie dun sa event, no? And it's still happening now, but yun na nga, the attitude is, I can find that somewhere online, or it's easy to view that at some point in the future. I mean, when I was learning, a lot of the classic films I already admired without even seeing them, because I was just reading about it. 2000 on Space Odyssey by Kubrick. I just saw photos and that was enough for me. I was appreciating it. It took a while before I found a VHS copy. No? So I didn't even see it in the big screen where it was meant to be seen. So yung experience na yun, parang iba yung attitude mo as a viewer and as a filmmaker wanting to learn cinema, no? I think na nagbago talaga yon because of the convenience and accessibility of movies now.
But at the time, it's interesting you bring up VHS and admiring 2001 even before you saw it in the cinema. In the way you talk about streaming and how like you have more control over it, like would you argue na with VHS you also had that same type of control?
That's true. So there was no choice because there was no other way to see it, no? And so whatever copy I had, then I'll go ahead and watch it. I watched Citizen Kane for the first time on a Betamax copy, borrowed from Ricky Lee. So Ricky Lee was one of the rare few people who had quite a library of art house and classic films. So humihiram kami sa kanya. In fact, he had a video shop in Green Hills called Shop and Lift, I think. Shop and Lift. It was very famous noon kasi rare movies ang mahihiram mo doon. So anyway, yun yung point parang you had to find the way. It was a really big effort. But yeah, totoo yung sinasabi mo. If you watch it on VHS, then you had control, you could rewind it and so on. Eventually, when I started traveling, I was able to show my own films in festivals. No? It's fascinating to look back, no? Like when I was in Berlin, you could look up I think it was Time Out magazine, where you can see schedule. So it's like, I'm wondering, is Apocalypse now showing anywhere theatrically? And you can look it up, and some obscure theater in Berlin would be showing it on a certain day, and so you can go out of your way and watch it. And finally, I got to see these movies on the big screen. No? Gone are those days. I mean, I know there are still these micro cinemas in Europe. I'm sure in France, no, but they're slowly dying. No, that was really a great way to be able to see these films the way they were meant to be seen, no, on the big screen.
Okay. So, sa Lilim, first time mo mag-collab with your son and fellow filmmaker, Mikhail. Ano yung mga natutunan mo or ano yung pinaka naka-surprise sa experience nyo sa collab na yan?
Yeah, for a long time, I never really meddled in my son's films. Of course, I kind of encouraged him, but I never really forced him into it. Also with Nicolas, who is now, going to show his first feature film. No? So even with my brother John, no, we never really fully collaborated. In the early years, John was my actor in my early Super 8 films, but we never really worked together on one film. It was only very recent that I started considering, working as a cinematographer with them. So the realization really is, and I mean, of course, I knew this for myself, but it became a kind of clearer thing for me, realizing, hey, I studied cinematography not to become a cinematographer. Very early on, I was starting to shoot on Super 8. I studied it because I wanted to shoot my own films. That was the simple thing, and I've remained like that. No, I shot all my own films. I've done cinematography for a few friends in commercials, maybe music videos, but very, very few occasions. No? So I never set out to build a career in cinematography. I wanted to be a filmmaker, and be a cinematographer for myself. So yung agreeing with Mikhail's proposal that I do cinematography for him became a very welcome idea, no? Parang naisip ko, maybe it's about time, no? I should try it, no? So we worked together. And marami akong realization sa set. Kasi nga, may habits na ako and approaches, no, to working because I am a cinematographer mainly for me as the director as well, no. So simple things, we're working style and yung steps of setting up a scene and a shot. Doon kami nagkaroon ng very slight conflict. There was never any major away o gulo sa set, no. But yun yung na-realize namin both, no, na kunyari siya yung director eh. So when there's a next setup, he wants the camera immediately because he wants to see the angle, and then he will say what he wants, no. Where the actors will be moving, what he will see in the frame, and so on. And then the creative staff start working, di ba? Kami as cinematographer and crew, we light it, di ba? The designer comes in, puts sets, So ganun yung tama namang process. But because I'm a cinematographer for myself, when I'm shooting, I don't need to put the camera agad because I have the angle already in my mind. So I actually start lighting. I start calling my crew, my gaffer, put the HMI there, put a platform here. And I tended to do that in the set for Lilim. So a lot of times, because sometimes we're in a big location, si Mick is looking for me. Hey, Dad, nasan si Dad? Umagano siya. Nung pala, andun na ako, and we were shooting also in Makiling, in the forest. I was out in the forest. I was already directing the crew because I got used to that, even in commercials. No? He wanted, no, put the camera first. I want to see my angle. I want to see the shot and then build the world. Ako, I want to build a bit of the world muna before I angle because I'm confident about my shot because I'm the cinematographer too. So then I realized that it's important for him. He's the director. He has his vision. I need to set up the camera first. We decide what the lens is and he will say, Yan, that's the shot. That's the angle I need. And that's what we're going to see. And that's where the actor will move and so on. And then we start working, no? So dapat ganon.
Interesting.
Yun yung main conflict na nangyari sa shoot, no?
Okay. Sabi mo dati sa ibang interview na yung lines of indie and mainstream cinema are getting blurred. Pero yung talagang distinct pa rin as alternative cinema. Kasi yan yung nagpapatuloy ng tulak para sa mga filmmakers mag-experiment. So can you name a moment sa filmmaking career mo where you felt creatively uncomfortable? As in, napa-challenge or napa-push yung tastes and sensibilities mo?
There's always challenge when you're not really sure how you're going to push forward your ideas and your vision. But in independent filmmaking and alternative cinema, you're in full control. No? Of course, a lot of times maybe with a limited budget, no? But the limitation actually challenges you further and pushes you, and that's where you're tested, no? Yung pagiging independent, yung pagiging resourceful, and you're very flexible, no? So you find ways to achieve yung vision mo. So I've mostly had maybe parang problems in shooting TV commercials, no? For example, kasi that's really highly collaborative. But I recognize that, and I went into that industry knowing that, no? In fact, there was a time that some people were questioning, how are you able to reconcile that you're doing these experimental artsy films and then you're doing commercials, no? Sabi ko, actually, it's easier to do that, eh. Kasi each industry, each form is very clear with its intent and goal, no? A commercial is very clear. You need to sell the product. You need to satisfy what the client needs, no? So with that in mind, you welcome the collaboration, no, with the creatives from an agency. They create a concept and so on. And that's why sa akin mas smoother yun, eh. So I'm able to practice my craft in cinematography, and then commercials have bigger budget. So marami akong natutunan, no? I'm able to use expensive equipment which I otherwise cannot afford in my own independent films, no? Now, in the alternative and independent production naman, yun na nga, you're in full control. So at least you're also in control of the challenges and the compromises that you need to do, no? And so I've always said compromise is not necessarily negative. Compromise is your ability to, still achieve your vision with given the parameters and the resources you have, no? So I've never really had a major problem with that, no? Kasi nga yun yung spirit of alternative filmmaking, eh. It's almost guerrilla warfare, no? So I from the onset, that's how I made films. I was working on Super 8, the smallest format, the cheapest format. And I've carried that over now, even when I worked in 35 millimeter format, in the bigger films, and eventually moving on to digital, I made a feature film, Himpapuwid. I was the producer, I was the writer, I was the cinematographer, director. So ikaw yung may control doon, but limited yung budget. But I really enjoy that. So you're able to make the film exactly the way you imagined it, eh. Or even Anino, the short film I did in 2000, it was shot on 35 millimeter, and I did it at a time when the burgeoning so-called digital revolution was happening, and my brother John was one of the proponents of that, no? So everybody was starting to shoot with small digital cameras. But there I was, not really going against the movement, but kind of making a statement that it's not the media, it's not the technology, it's not the format. There is a revolution in the technology, but the real revolution in cinema is still in the message and the way you make the film. So that's why I did Anina then. So So yeah, whenever I'm doing these very personal, very independent, alternative films, um, para sa akin smooth yung process eh. So apart from having limited budgets, uh, maganda yung experience para sa akin pa rin talaga ng ganong style of filmmaking
Mm.
as opposed to, let's say, a bigger commercial setup.
I wonder if you've ever had like napa-reality check ka as a filmmaker. Because what I'm hearing is yun talagang realidad ng alternative cinema. Like you do things by yourself, you have full control. But I guess in the process of getting to know the craft, were there certain expectations that you had about the filmmaking process that sort of surprised you with this rude awakening na, ganito pala, kailangan pala ganito. It's not what I expected. So did you ever have a moment like that in your career?
Well, through the years of making films, syempre, you keep learning eh. You learn a lot of things, no? I think ang naging advantage ko was I was in the TV commercial production industry very early on, no? I was doing my first full-length film in 1991, Bayani. But at the same time, that was the year I was pulled into TV commercials, no? So I was working on that, and then eventually I made Sakai. Eventually I made a partly indie film but produced through GMA na Kamada with Francis Magalona. So throughout those years in the 90s, I was also doing commercials. So the discipline I learned in doing TV commercials nakatulong talaga sa independent filmmaking ko rin. So na-apply ko yung discipline, no? Yung discipline sa job, sa work, sa relationship with your staff, your crew, na-apply ko sa independent filmmaking. So even though indie and alternative filmmaking has this image of being, rebels or free-flowing, and hindi, makakatulong din na may discipline. So I think yun na-apply ko yung discipline ng advertising doon sa personal independent films ko. So hindi naging mahirap yun.
Never ka na-frustrate sa TV commercials? Or you mostly welcomed it?
There are times you get frustrated, of course. May mga conflicts ng ideas, and sometimes you try to be as creative as you can, no? As a director, you give inputs. I'm also the cinematographer. So, but at the end of the day, I realize, okay, this is what the client wants or the agency creatives want. And I respect the fact na they probably went through months of study, may mga FGD yan, and pinag-aaralan nila talaga yung commercial, yung market, yung target audience, and all that.
Right.
Na usually as an indie filmmaker, when you're making a personal film, you don't think about that yet eh. You think about your film and you hope that your audience will accept it, no? Ganun lang eh. But here, pinag-aaralan yung side na yun eh. So I respect that. So once I realize that, then I'm able to tame down myself. So na lilimit ko yung frustration in that sense. But yeah, I will admit, syempre na-frustrate ka at certain times na lumalabas yung creative juices mo and you're thinking of doing the commercial in a certain way, but you realize hindi pwede, no? May mga bawal or ayaw ng client and so on. So it's really collaborative. So it's really respecting the roles of everyone involved in that type of production. Whereas in indie filmmaking, I mean, of course, I do respect my creative staff, no, the designer, makeup, and everyone else involved, no. The AD, the assistant director would have his own ideas, and I welcome those. No? But ultimately, they all know ako yung masusunod eh. So ako yung mag-synthesize lahat nitong ideas na to that are being thrown in to make a cohesive whole for the film, because it's my vision at the end of the day. So I've learned to do that in a very efficient way, in a respectful way, no?
Nice. Isa sa pinakamalakas na tema sa mga pelikula mo ay yung paghahanap ng Filipino identity. Ikaw personally, paano mo napaprocess yung sarili mong pagka-Filipino? And what I want to know na is, bilang isang Pinoy, ano yung mga conflict na experience mo sa day-to-day life mo that inspires your films?
I'm very sure yan yung real problem ng a lot of people, and especially even the young people now, no? Everybody's always looking for their identity, and we're kind of pressured to look deeper into our identity as Filipinos. And it's very complex, there are so many things thrown and into the discussion, like, are we a damaged culture, or masyado tayong chop suey, di ba? Kasi we went through different occupations, colonization. No? So laging challenge yun to look for identity. But at the same time, it's accepting where you are, di ba? Generally, Filipinos, aminin na natin, we kind of almost aspired an American life, di ba? Masyado tayong na-Americanize almost 50 years, no? Ng colonization. So talagang we absorbed American culture, no? So hindi natin maiwasan yun. So you need to first accept the fact of nasan tayo and what we are right now. We're a hybrid, no, of influences. So once you know that, then you also have to look back and respect. So yun yung sinasabi ko sa young kids, kasi maraming young people parang, they don't give a shit anymore about looking back into history. Parang hindi na important yan. Nandito na tayo . Ako sa akin, nandito tayo, look at this, accept this, look forward into the future, but always look back then. Kasi I learn a lot from the past, no? And yun nga, when I'm teaching my students, no, about film and film history, and I tell them, okay, I mentioned these films. I know a lot of you have never even seen them, or maybe never made an effort to find them, no? But it's so accessible. So in a way, you don't have any excuse. But I'm not saying you need to have seen everything, but at least when you hear about it, be curious about it, look for it, no? You hear about Apocalypse Now by Coppola was shot in the Philippines. That's so interesting. I think a young person should be curious about that, no? And look it up and try to watch that movie. So parang ganon . You need to keep looking back. And I told them, the movies I watched when I was starting out, I was like 17, doing Super 8 and learning about classic films, those films were very old, even for me at that time, no? In the early 80s, I saw Citizen Kane for the first time, and it blew me away, no?
Napaka-timeless ng Citizen Kane. No?
Oh, so ang lakas ng impact. And then, the Citizen Kane has always been voted by yung pag nagpo-poll for film critics and film scholars, it's always voted as one of the greatest films ever made, no? And then I show it to some students, and they don't see that. Parang they're wondering why is this considered. But see, that's the thing. I say I'm not forcing you to believe in that. You have your own taste, but watch it, and then the best way to give respect to an older film is to watch it in the context of the time they were made. So you have to learn something about the time. So that's what happened to me. I was a young filmmaker. I see an old film like Citizen Kane and start wondering, it was made in 1941. It was just before World War II. So things like that. The movie is not about World War II, but I think that way. Parang I thought, wow, what was Orson Welles going through at that time? And then America was about to get into World War II, and what was happening socially, politically. See, then you learn, because you start digging that up. And there was no internet then. So you had to make that effort. You look for books. And so I tell my students, you have Google and ChatGPT and all that now. It's so convenient. So, the 15 to 20 minutes you spend on TikTok, why not spend it looking for, valuable information also.
I wanna know yung context mo when you were coming up as a cinephile and a filmmaker in the 80s, which was, during martial law. And in connecting it to this idea of hinahanap yung pagka-Pilipino mo, like what was your context at the time as a young filmmaker living in martial law and absorbing all of that context and information? Like, what was it like being a filmmaker at that time?
What's so interesting is really when I look back on that, I studied painting. So I thought I was going to be a painter, and I was into photography. So I guess the interest in photography was the technical side of it. No? So that kind of led to moving images and eventually cinematography. No? So I wanted to use this to explore thoughts, feelings, ideas. And kaya ganyan ko siya kinikwento sa kids today. Sabi ko, now you have social media to express yourself. We didn't have that. How can I express myself, no? Not necessarily to the whole world, but at least to my friends, to my peers, you know. And I found that this would be an effective way, you know. So I started making those early experimental films. Now we were in those tumultuous times, no, when I was starting my early short films. That was the time and the year, you know, by 83 when I released my early short films, the year Ninoy Aquino was assassinated. And it was really chaotic ng time na yun, ano? Of course, there was supposedly already supposedly tinanggal ng martial law, no? And yet it wasn't really true. Parang ganun pa rin yung situation. And you know, so ultimately that led to the EDSA revolution in 86. So yun yung time na gumagawa ko ng films. Now, my films were very personal. Yun na nga eh. Walang social media, hindi ka makapag-express ng emotions mo. So doon ko ine-express. See, I made films not to be famous, not to be, you know, loved by people or noticed by people, but I simply wanted to pour it out, yung mga thoughts and feelings ko. So they were very, very personal. But at the same time, I was working amongst other filmmakers who, like Nick De Ocampo, you know, who were doing political films, you know, talagang fighting for gender identity already at a very early time, no, in his documentaries. So nai-influence ka nung peers mo. So that was the atmosphere ng time na yun. So lahat kami siguro naghahanap ng identity na yun, you know, yung pagiging Filipino, and how are we surviving with this system that is imposed on us, no? And you know, decades later na-realize ko yung pa rin yung theme ng films ko. Anino was about that, about survival, about not necessarily encouraging to fight, but it was questioning how you survive in a system that is imposed to you. And I made it in a bigger story in Himpapawid, no, in 2009. So in a sense, Himpapawid was the long feature version of Anino, which was into, you know, 8-9 years later, no. So parang paulit-ulit, hindi natatapos eh. And what's interesting is when I made Anino, it was partly also a tribute to Maynila sa mga kuko ng liwanag ni Lino Broca, no, which was from 1975. And at that time when I released Anino, imagine that's like 25 years before, you know, yung Maynila. And yet it seemed like nothing had changed, no, in society. And in fact, I had the privilege of showing Anino for the first time. In fact, not in Cannes. I made Anino not for international festivals. I made it for Pelikula at Lipunan, a local festival that's organized by the Mobile Film Institute and other institutions. And there was a special revival screening of Maynila, and they showed Anino before Maynila sa Liwanag. So that was a very talagang
Special.
eventful for me kasi na-discuss yung subject matter na yon and all the issues that were tackled, and there was somebody from the audience nga who, I mean, I'm not necessarily totally agreeing with it, but he was saying, what Maynila said in 2 hours, you said in 12 minutes. Yun yung reaction niya. So that kind of struck me, no? But I think important to realize from that was that that passion to question eh. So yun nga yung lagi ko sinasabi with my films, it is personal. You question, but I never pretend to know the answers. So when you make these films, you actually want to provoke thinking from your audience and hope they find the answer, no? Ganun lang yung process na yun eh. So it's never propaganda. Ibig sabihin, it's really a sincere pouring out of emotion and thoughts and ideas eh. And based on experiences also, no? And hope there might be something positive out of that experience nung viewers who see your film. So that's why I always say cinema is an experience. Sabi ko nga, the magic of cinema precisely is it's like life, no? Lalo na when you watch it on the big screen, you cannot pause it, you cannot rewind it.
Interesting yung sinabi mo na di mo na-expect na your films would reach countries like Germany and Italy because you were really creating for the Filipino audience and for self-expression. Pero I wonder, like, when you started getting recognition as a Filipino artist, you went to Cannes and all these festivals, did you ever feel, and I feel like this is a Pinoy quality, did you ever feel like imposter syndrome, especially when you were attending like international film festivals and nakita mo na ikaw lang yung Pinoy dun?
It can be frustrating to realize how marginal we are as a cinema, as a national cinema Filipino, because generally, you attend these festivals and a lot of the people there would not know what Philippine cinema is, And like when you mention Korean cinema or even Vietnamese, they're more familiar already, no? So, naunahan na tayo ng neighbors natin, Indonesia, Thailand. And they came about quite much later. I mean, at least in the 90s or so, when big international festivals started programming them. And of course, Chinese cinema, coming out from that opening nila to the world, no? Economically and politically. So, sumikat ang Chinese cinema. But we've had cinema here in the Philippines for more than a century. In fact, we're one of the earliest cinema industries in Asia, no? And yet, we seem to be struggling for that identity pa rin, no? And so, like yun nga, when I began in the 80s, I made those Super 8 films, the early Super 8 films, experimental, narrative also, thinking they will be seen in a classroom by UP students. Then eventually, it was being shown in Ateneo. So I realized, malaki yung audience. And then eventually, it was sent to festivals abroad. And then I found myself traveling already. So that was quite overwhelming because I never made those films thinking it will be seen by a German audience, a French audience, and so on.
Why was it overwhelming?
Because you really don't know how they would react, but generally it was quite positive. Of course, there's that factor that your films, lalo na yung films ko, they were Super 8 films, very modest, low budget, very crude, very rough. And my films were being programmed in these big festivals, and a lot of times I found myself as the only Super 8 program in those big festivals. So, ibang feeling eh. Eventually, I was in a festival with Lino Broca and Eddie Romero. So we were like 3 generations, no? Parang si Eddie Romero yung lolo namin, si Lino was older than me, parang siya ang tatay ko, and I was like this young filmmaker with Super 8 films, no? So it was a great opportunity to show that, but at the same time, I felt so insecure. I had these small short films, no, that that were really really obscure, no? But at the same time, nga, maybe it became a novelty for the programmers and the audience in those festivals. Na, they look at the program and suddenly, hey, look at this, oh, may Super 8 films, experimental from the Philippines, and they're wondering, may ganun pala sa Philippines? May nag-experiment pala doon. So, nung time na yun, talagang ganun, it was unique, it was a novelty, no? That eventually led me nga to exploring, other approaches, which is like doing full-length movies, no? So I did Bayani, Saka, and so on. So yun parang that's difficult, but we're still experiencing it. Now, it's very common to read about a Filipino film being in an international festival. That nung time na yun, it was kind of like a rare thing. You always hear about Lino Broca lang or maybe Mike De Leon sometimes and Ishmael Bernal, being in an international festival. I mean, I'm sure there were other directors going to festivals, but yun yung popular thing that you hear, no, from the press. Now, every day you will read something about a young filmmaker in Cannes or another film winning a prize in South America. So, dumami rin yung festivals, dumami yung opportunities, dumami ang filmmakers, no? But then, the real opportunities are still limited. I mean, opportunities to be totally successful, and to make it sustainable. So that's why a lot of independent filmmakers still struggle. In fact, I always say I'm still a struggling filmmaker. I struggle to make only the films I really want to make and that I truly believe in.
That segs well into my next question kasi I think you mentioned na when you were making Anino, karamihan ng team, volunteers, and yung mga binayaran yung crew at setman. So hanggang ngayon, kahit sa mga ibang bansa, ganito pa rin yung setup. At sa mga ibang creative projects, not just in filmmaking. Sa tingin mo, ganito na lang ba talaga ang realidad pag di mainstream ang production?
I guess ang big discussion is really what is alternative cinema? What is alternative today? Kasi what was alternative before may not be alternative now, di ba? Or what was experimental then is not necessarily experimental now. But hindi mawawala yun That will remain because artists will always explore new ways, new approaches. They want to go into the unknown. So, sabi nga nila, let's say the online platforms, YouTube, TikTok, that's the new cinema. But now, an independent filmmaker can make an experimental film and put it in TikTok, and it may be seen by millions of people, no? Kami, we didn't have that opportunity. I'd make a Super 8 film and show it in a classroom of maybe 20 people and masaya na ako. Yun na yung audience ko, di ba? Eventually nga, lumaki yung opportunities to be able to show your film. So, ano yan walang katapusan na question. Parang, what is alternative now?
What is alternative now?
You keep looking so like right now I'm still teaching experimental cinema, so I teach the students to look deep into the history of it. What exactly is the term experimental? When did it start? And it began quite early in the 1920s, no? When cinema was still very young as an art form and as a medium. So see, artists were already trying to look for other ways of making films. There wasn't even sound then, no? Silent cinema yun. So until now, ganun tayo. Yes, there are new technologies and new platforms, new ways to show your film, new ways to absorb moving images. No? But hindi mawawala yung passion ng artist to look for alternatives. So kaya nga sinasabi ko, yes, TikTok and YouTube is the mainstream because it's now being watched by millions. And it's amazing na you can put an experimental film there. It doesn't guarantee it will be seen, but at least it's there. Di ba? Hindi ka pareho ng situation namin noon na you have to, schedule a screening in a classroom or somewhere, di ba? For your film to be seen. Otherwise, ikaw lang yung audience ng sarili mong film. So yun yung major thing na nagbago. But are artists exploring new ways? Kasi before the means of production and showing the film was part of the alternative experience. Now you have a free platform to be able to show it. Yes, you cannot show it in IMAX or these big theaters. But you have the internet now to try and reach the whole world, with your film. So in a sense, that's not alternative anymore. That's the mainstream, diba? See, the word stream became literal now. It's streaming, so it's the main source, of watching content, of moving images. But now, as an artist, are there alternative ways of making a film? And there are still alternative ways of, let's say, telling a story. Can you actually experiment on film language?
Different formats also make it subversive.
And then, the different formats. Of course, through history, artists have been using moving image, also integrating it into the visual arts, in video installations, projecting moving image in art spaces and stuff like that. So that's still happening. It's becoming a challenge to look for new ways. So you might question, is it important to look for new ways? I think the artist is the only one who can answer that for himself. Kasi depende sa goal and purpose niya for making a film. I mean, that's the first thing I always ask my students. Why are you going to make this film? You have to answer yourself that as sincerely as possible, because you don't even have to tell me. That's your responsibility to answer it for yourself.
Okay. In 2018, in another interview, sinabi mo na Filipinos of today are constantly trying to redefine themselves amidst global change and technology, and that we should influence the technology, not the technology influencing us. And in your recent press con for the 6th Sinagoma Film Festival, in-announce mo where you are creative consultant and co-director also of the festival. In-announce niyo na you would be putting the country's first AI film competition category. So gusto ko lang i-clarify, ibig sabihin ba nito, buong AI-made films lang ang pwede or kahit yung may konting AI lang nagamit?
First, I need to speak about the thought, that I've always said, we shouldn't be slaves to the technology. But we should harness the technology. We should adapt to the new technology and use it for our purpose, and hopefully for progressive purposes. So, yun, na naging digital ang cinema, a lot of film purists, celluloid film purists, were really, saddened by that event, But I didn't look at it that way. Yes, I really like celluloid. I started with Super 8, 16 millimeter, 35, But when digital came in, I adapted to it. So that's it. You embrace the new technology, but you use it for your real purposes and intent, Kaya nga, you don't become a slave to it, So we continue to adapt, because they're new technologies and it's changing very fast. So now the discussion, really a very serious discussion, is AI, that's affecting all industries and people saying we're going to lose jobs, So in this new film festival called Cinegoma Film Festival. They're on their 6th year. For the first time, they're adding a AI category. But it's just one category. The festival still celebrates really grassroots filmmaking, short filmmaking, no? Independent filmmaking. No? But they thought, and the head of the festival thought na it's about time na maybe we should put an AI category. So my opinion then was that's going to be quite controversial, but I agreed that it would be interesting to have that category if we outline the guidelines very clearly. Because I see this as an opportunity, in fact, to make a statement about AI. Because I personally would not want to make AI films yet. No? I still want to shoot films. So, yung personal films ko, talagang hanggat kaya ko, isushoot ko on digital or maybe even film format. Recently, I've been dabbling on Super 8 again. But I welcome the idea of AI as a category. In fact, as an opportunity to challenge those who want to use AI because we cannot actually prevent them from doing it. It's really there right now, and it's coming in so fast, and there's no way of stopping these people who want to use it or you're already using it. No, so what can we do? We cannot really push back against that. So what we can do is challenge them to use that tool and consider it just as a tool, di ba? And use it for really more positive and progressive filmmaking.
Sabi mo din sa press con na kahit may AI category, yun nga, nire-recognize natin yung tao sa likod ng pelikula. Pero sa broader discussion, yung pagkagamit ng AI and how it centralizes power is a big issue. So, kano kalapit na tayo sa democratize ng AI as a tool versus like, editing software or even like how we use smartphones. It really democratized the tools for the artist. So how close are we with AI to becoming a democratized tool?
Right now, it almost seems it's democratized, because a lot of people have access to it. But it's commercialized. There are these limited free apps, but it's very limiting. So if you really want to make something more serious, you have to pay the subscriptions from these different companies or sites.
Pero di ba same, let's say Adobe or the DaVinci, you have to also pay for a subscription. So is it the same?
Right. So as long as you can afford it, no, then you will have the access to it as a tool. And of course, the debate is always, well, at least this is cheaper than buying a digital camera or doing production and paying a real actor and so on. No, yun yung
Right.
discussion right now. And I think that's where the conflict really lies. Kasi nga, yung discussion na mawawala ng trabaho yung mga ibang tao. But at the moment, I'm not an expert on AI. I don't know how much faster it will develop, but it has developed very, very quickly in just the past few years, no? So we really don't know when AI might be able to create characters that are who almost seemingly have soul in their acting and emotions. But I think darating tayo sa time na we will embrace AI, but we will become sophisticated ourselves as human beings, that we can really spot AI no matter how good it is. So, I think darating din tayo sa point mauumay tayo sa AI. We will start looking for authenticity again and the real soul kasi we will see through it. We can see through it. So there might be a turnaround again sometime in the future wherein We will want authentic performances, authentic, ideas and emotions, no, from what we're watching. Precisely because we can tell that it's artificial. One of the things I personally realized, no, when AI was developing just these past years from the pandemic and till now, no, I was so amused by it. It's so fascinating. I'm impressed by it, but without really consciously doing it, no, or not doing it. Whenever I saw something impressive, I realized I was never curious who made it. Whereas when you're watching a film, the first thing I check is who directed this, or the cinematography is fantastic. Who's the cinematographer? All these years, I was watching all these AI. I didn't give a damn who the company was. Of course, sometimes it's right there. You can read it. But there was no real desire to know who made it, even though I was entertained, amused, and impressed. And I think that's where that sense, for us as human viewers, uh, will move forward to the future and retain that, and that desire to see authenticity. That's how I predict it.
Nice. Thank you, Raymond, for your time and for your sharing your thoughts with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.